All right, good morning or good afternoon, depending on where you're joining us from, everyone. Welcome to Instructional AI, a masterclass in Packback adoption and integration. I'm joined by the lovely Juliet Rogers from Pasadena ISD. And just a little bit of housekeeping before we get started here. This is a webinar recording, and your attendee certificate will be shared within 2 days. You can access all of our recordings at packback.co/webinars. Any questions that you have, we do encourage you to use the Q&A feature. That way we can follow up. We can also allow upvoting for questions that are really burning in your minds. Use the chat for reflections and to share ideas. We'll be monitoring the chat. Our friendly pal, Peter from Packback, is in the chat, manning getting back to any questions as well. And we do encourage this to be an interactive space. We're really hoping to make this valuable for you and your time. So please do use that tool as much as you would like to. If you are joining the webinar today, this is actually a step 3 in your journey of becoming an instructional AI expert. So if you are brand new to understanding instructional AI through the AVID membership, we highly encourage that you go ahead and attend our 1-hour general training session if you have not already. That training session is going to give you all of the foundational knowledge that you need of how to get started, how this works with your AVID membership, with how it connects to Wicker, all of those wonderful foundational understandings. We have a process where you go ahead and get verified so that you can gain access into the Packback communities, which we will be showing today. Whereas today's webinar is going to be highly focused on how you're actually implementing and digging into using these tools. So Juliet will be giving us her perspective as an AVID teacher who's been utilizing this technology on how to really take it to the next level. So again, if you're brand new, you can definitely hang in. There's a lot to be learned from today, but we still encourage you to go ahead and go through steps 1 and 2 to be able to take full advantage of what you're going to learn today. All right, Juliet, if you could just give us a little background as to who you are and how you came to get to know Packback and AVID.
Yes. Hi, my name is Juliet Rogers. I am a 24-year teacher. However, this is only my 2nd year in AVID, and I found out about AVID. I found out about Packback during an AVID training early last year, and I was super excited to jump on board and get my kids started on it. So we've been utilizing it consistently, and I've made a lot of improvements this year, and it's just been a dream to work with. So I'm really excited to be able to share with other teachers.
Thank you so much. And my name is Devyn Maguire. I'm our Director of Academic Innovation and Strategy here at Packback. I've been with Packback for close to 6 years. I originally began my journey in education in the primary space with grades K through 3, and then fell in love with technology in the classroom. I became a tech coach, and that led me on my journey to Packback, where I've loved helping support teachers from kindergarten all the way now to higher education in utilizing technology. So with that, just a little glimpse of what we're going to go through today. We're going to get into how instructional AI and AVID, again, are connected and how these two strong pedagogical strategies really share great synergy. We'll take you through seeing it in practice using Juliet's guidance and what she does in her classroom as a glimpse into what you could bring into your own classroom, share a little bit about student outcomes, and then spend a lot of time answering your questions. So again, please do use that Q&A so that we know how to address what's really burning in your mind. Little foundational awareness. So we're going to use this term instructional AI. This is actually coined by Packback. Packback is a company that's been leveraging AI since about 2017, beginning in the higher ed classroom. And then we saw there was a great opportunity to come and help our students really with that college and career readiness. And that's how we stumbled into having a beautiful relationship with AVID, as we saw great synergy between our two companies' missions. We together use the term instructional AI to describe AI that is there to help augment, to really enhance the role of an instructor and improve the environment for students. So there's lots of different AIs out there. Packback leverages a lot of them, including generative AI. However, what instructional AI does is it's there to improve the teaching and learning experience and to make an educational environment safely using these AI tools. So as you hear us use that term, that's what we're describing. So Juliet, can you help us just understand how did you come to want to be open to bringing this technology into your classroom?
Right. So I do teach high school. I teach 10th grade, and my program is connected with early college. So all my students are currently in 1 to 2 college courses a semester, but my job is to prepare them to be full-time college students next year through high school. So when I first found out about Packback and the instructional AI, I was really excited because my students were really struggling with writing. And while, I have an English minor, I am not an English teacher, nor is AVID a place to turn into an English classroom. So I wanted to have some kind of resource to help the students without trying to turn my classroom into an English classroom. So when I found out about this, I got really excited because of the fact that it's teaching students. So there's a lot of AI systems out there, but the thing that I found really special and different was that Packback was stopping and teaching the students mistakes as opposed to just giving them like, here, do this instead. So that was really exciting. The other part I loved about it was how through the students learning, it would break down tiny little pieces and show them. And of course, as a teacher, it grades all the things that we find most tedious and take so much time, all the like little grammar and mechanics and formatting and all the things that we really need help with. So that just took a really big load off my plate. So through a training that we had, and it was introduced to me, and it was just presented at, if you want to try this. And I was like the first one, sign me up, I need this. And so I went back the next day and got it all set up. The people at Packback were so generous and helpful. I didn't really know what I was doing, but I got on a Zoom like this, and within minutes, they had me all set up and ready to go. And any questions I had, even in the middle of class, they were right there to answer them. It was great. So that's what kind of drew me in. And since then, I've utilized it more and more, and it's become just a really active part of our class every day.
Wonderful. And we actually have Madison Shea has joined us. So if you are someone who is using Packback through the AVID membership, again, that would be AVID elective teachers in grades 6 through 12 or AVID Excel teachers 7 and 8. Madison is your point person. So if you don't already have her email address, we'll throw it in the chat. But if you have any questions, she's the person who runs our general onboarding sessions and can give you some support. So if you can help us understand, Juliet, you saw this thing and you're like, okay, I think this can help my students. I see opportunities where we can be leveraging technology. Can you help break down for us, what does a week or a unit in Juliet Rogers' classroom with AI look like?
Great. Yeah. So every day I have, basically a warm up when the kids come in, and it varies, but I would say at least a few times a week, I will post like, okay, we're going to do your Packback. It is basically a discussion board. So, and it's on a 2-week rotation. So for example, we just had a holiday, we came back today. So today they're posting their initial question. Before they post that initial question, I actually have them come in every week and I have them do what's called a check-in. And what they do is just look at a snapshot of their grades. So they can quickly surmise like, where am I struggling, which class, and also like do a little reflection on what is the content in that class I'm struggling with. And they use that to create their question, which is perfectly in line with our AVID, TRFs and tutorials. So that was very exciting for me as well. So they post that initial question. There are some criteria. They have to have an open-ended question. It must be on one of their core or college classes. There is a scoring system. So I set a minimum score that they have to get. And then throughout the next 2 weeks, I'll find a few days to add on, okay, do your first response to someone else and then do another response. I have little things I tell them they have to always choose someone new. they have to choose someone who has no responses yet. On days that we don't have Packback as a warm up, I do an SAT, like words that they look up, and they keep like a digital log of SAT words. I make them include an SAT word in their entries so that they're starting to incorporate that. So those are extra things I do within Packback, but it's just become a regular routine. So they're constantly doing writing practice with that daily or it's not every day, but you understand the warm-ups that we do through the week. And then on that final, and it's usually Friday, unless there's a holiday that it's due, they have it due by 11:59, but by then we've had plenty of class time opportunity to get it done. But if they weren't there, they have plenty of time to get caught up and get all that in and double check their work. So that's as far as the daily practice. And then do you want me to go ahead and talk about the deep dives and how we're using that?
Yeah, we'll go a little deeper into questions in just a moment, but if you want to just high level tease what you do in deep dives, and then we'll go deep into deep dives in a little bit.
Okay. Yeah, so because I'm the AVID elective teacher and I'm really trying to support their work in college, a few things. One, we want to work on our writing practice as far as like writing research papers, but also they have those papers going on in other classes. And so what I'll do is I'll say, okay, you have a research paper coming up in English or sociology. We're going to make that an assignment in AVID. And I open up, I create a rubric and I put the assignment in one of the deep dives and I have them put that in there. I personally choose not to grade the content, but just look at all the grammar, the flow, formatting, all of those things. And I would like, the content is really, that's something you're responsible for, but I can check all the other things and give them that help. And truly the flow and mechanics and formatting is where they struggle the most. So that's really helpful. And then if I do have a paper for my class, which I do once a year, I do a research paper, then I will include those other things as well. But they are getting really detailed help along the way, and it's help, not just telling them what to write, but rather showing them specifically in the paper where there's an issue and then how to fix it. Yeah.
Fantastic. And I really loved when we're going to get deeper into this example of how you really go about those daily practices. When we were first talking, you were sharing with me, this is an activity that they're going to do when they get into the college environment, and having that regular, working that muscle of regular discussion and how do you engage in that. And even if, a student doesn't go on the college path, being able to succinctly communicate is such a strong skill. So could you give us a little insight into like how you thought about using this on such a regular basis? Because I think that's a question a lot of teachers have is, should I just do this once with one activity, or is this something I can actually use really regularly in my classroom?
Yes. This discussion board setup is absolutely ideal. And like this is just one of my examples from like a few weeks ago of what my daily warm-up looks like. So you see, I have my essential question, my weekly check-in. I always do that in the first day of the week. Like I said, they just tell me their grades, where they're struggling, and a reflection of like, what can I do to make improvements? And then they use that information to post their initial question. And you can see there's some criteria I have here. They have access to this Costa question stems that I've given them. So they open that and they have to choose either a core or college class, so not an elective and not my class, where they feel like they're struggling, and create that question. And then I make them always choose a new vocabulary word from their log and underline and bold it so I can see it easily. So that when I go in and grade, I can see their grades. And then because I have this extra step, I'll just like glance and I can see if they've done that. And it's real fast grading for me.
And we'll show you all in a minute how to do
Sorry,
it. Sorry, we'll show you all in a minute how to actually do this in the platform for anyone who is newer and needing that visual. But what I love that Juliet does here is it really helps them get ready for that discussion board experience, which most colleges and universities still expect and will likely expect for the near future. So
yes, in fact, thank you for saying that again. So in talking with my students now, but really the ones that have come back from last year that are full-time college students, I've asked them a lot of questions, and one of them I said, how many classes do you have a discussion board? And they stop there and think, and they're like, all of them. They had to think, was there any class that didn't? They all have them. And even if they're not college bound, to have that safe space where they can discuss where they're struggling. When we stop and reflect, okay, what did people say to you? And like what was helpful? And we actually, go to the next step and like dig into what they said to each other. like always, they have a perspective that helps them understand where they were struggling. And so like their brains are starting to click, oh, this is actually helpful. And now I understand something I didn't understand. So whether they're college bound or not, I think it's just such a wonderful tool for them to use. And of course, they're working on their writing.
And you explained to us how you kind of set up those bumpers, if you will, for students using the curiosity score, which is that
Mhm.
score that is set up in Packback and actually will assign the score for you. You can give us a little insight of how you leverage that score and then the impact that we're seeing here from student A.
Right. So when I first set up, it was recommended to me to do a minimum curiosity score of 40. And my understanding is that that's just a really good place for them to be at a base level. So you can see this is an example of one student I found um, her entry on the first week of school, like in Packback number one, the first week of school, or the first couple weeks of school, and then versus something within just a few weeks ago. So they do have to have an open-ended question. They do have to have a minimum score of 40. However, they do have this leaderboard. They get really excited about who's in the lead, but they can start to see how they have grown stronger. So you can see in this first one, they have a question. They've briefly explained it. They met the minimum requirements, but in the second, they're just either to borrow for the deep dive, like they're really going a lot deeper into their explanation. And this is just the question. This is not a response. This is the same student question that they created in the first weeks of school versus a question they recreated later on. One of the things that kids found is that if they use a credible source, it's helpful to the other students, but it also improves their score. So it's kind of encouraging them to seek out good sources to use in their work. And then they get points on like their academic vocabulary and how they're phrasing their sentences. So it's all things that are supporting them in their writing.
And I love seeing that. And that score of a 92, now you're actually seeing college level expectations that your high schoolers are meeting early in their career, and they're getting used to like, what does quality discussion look like? And it's not about length. Like, sure, we could look at this example and say, okay, well, the second one's longer than the first one, so it must be better. But it's not about the length, it's about the substance of what she added in here. She's really they are explaining themselves very clearly and bringing in, as you said, that credible source. So if I'm someone else who had no understanding of the context, I now can go investigate that source and provide a substantive response instead of just something like, I agree, which that's where good conversation goes to die. So,
Yeah.
wonderful. Now, the TRF is something we get a lot of questions on. So we want to spend a little time for anyone joining us that, again, is a little deeper in their Packback awareness. As a reminder, there are pre-made lessons for you in my AVID. So if you are newer, again, if you go to that general onboarding, we can walk you through how to access those lessons. But the TRF is one that, Julia, if you could just explain like the connection that you saw between the TRF and then Packback questions, and also some of the challenges that you're trying to overcome by using technology to really hit the goal of the TRF here.
Absolutely. So as I was new to AVID last year, I was not confident in tutorials or using the TRF, but I was really trying. And as soon as I found out about Packback, it really, if you think about it, it's following exactly what the TRF wants, at least the first portion, right? So we're identifying a class where we're struggling. We're creating a question based on the content in that class. So there's your initial question. It does talk about academic vocabulary, which is inherent in the writing process of what we're doing. And then one of the things, and I don't know if we look back on the little example, it says, what do I know already? In the example you see from the previous girl on her two, she talks about, and that was one of the things I told them, say what you know and what you don't know. So in the first week, she didn't do a super great job, but in the second one, she did. And if you are able to look through this, she really explains, this is what I understand. And this is what I know. This is where I'm struggling. So it really kind of catapults them into that next phase of the TRF. So for me, I was like, oh my gosh, what a win, as someone who is not feeling super confident about tutorials, this is a way for us to just jump into that and take all those steps. And so then when I have gone back and gone, okay, let me teach you about TRFs, they're like, we already do this. Exactly. Like they feel confident, they understand it. So to me, it's just directly in line. It's just basically a digital way to do it that has just become our regular routine. So
love that so much. And again, if you have any specific questions about how Juliet does any of these things in her classroom, please do put them into the Q&A so that we can address your questions. From here, we're going to actually take you into example of one of Juliet's classroom environments so you can see in real time how this works. This is a breakdown of where a student would go to post a new question. So if you're new to Packback, again, the discussion experience Packback questions is set up in such a way that it's all inquiry driven. So students are the ones asking a question, and then we encourage them to be responding with one another. And you can set the expectations of to what degree they need to write using that curiosity score. And you can also set up how regularly they do. So I'm going to take us into Juliet's community here. And I do have a privacy filter on. So if this was your classroom, you would be seeing your students' names. You're not going to see students' names in here. But
so we just finished Packback number 14. We just started 15 today, so you're not really going to see anything there. But we just finished Packback 14. If or any of these, what's fine.
Perfect. And I was actually going to ask you, can you explain to us what each of the, like, what is the setup that we're looking at?
Okay. Yeah. So I definitely got better at this since last year, but I was able to go into each class and, I know I wanted it on a 2-week rotation, and they're numbered in order that we're going to do them, right? So Packback number 1 was the first one that we did for the year, and it started on, it says Saturday, August 26th, but really we started on a Monday, but it goes through Friday at 11:59. So what I'll do is I'll make sure it's named appropriately, just, in numbering in order. It's on a 2-week time slot. And then it closes out at 11:59. So I can choose all of that. I also have for each one, they are supposed to post 1 question and 2 responses. So if, let's say, for example, last week, some kid wasn't paying attention and he posted 2 questions and 1 response, well, that affected his grade because that's not what's supposed to happen. So, and it will catch that for me. So it's 1 question, 2 responses, and yeah.
And that's actually the same methodology that we recommend our college professors to use. 1 question, 2 responses on the cadence that works for you, because again, you're working that regular muscle for your students. And then you also get insight into what they're understanding in real time. So you can go into the classroom and pull out, oh, looks like we have a gap here, and we're going to dig deeper into this concept, versus if you only use it sparingly or not really able to work that muscle quite as strongly or get that same rhythm of engagement from your students. So I love that Juliet's following that method.
Mm-hmm. And I have a child of my own that's currently in college right now. I just finished my master's degree a few years ago, so I am very familiar with all the professors are having these discussion boards. And so I was like, we have to get used to this because this is something we're going to be doing in every class, and they are. So
love it. And then this is Packback 14. So can you help us understand how you kind of set up, how do they know what to write about every week?
So like I said, every week, and you can scroll through and look at some different ones, but every week they first do their check-in, like what classes, where's my grades, where are my grades at? And then they use that data to kind of determine, okay, which class am I actually needing help? And then they're going to choose, the question that they're going to create based on what's going on in that class. Then they create that question, and then through the next 2 weeks, then they come in and start responding. So I will do everybody post your question one day, and we skip a couple of days. Okay, now everybody do a response, skip a few days. All right, everybody do your second response. And then we have a little bit of wiggle room if in case somebody was absent or just got behind or what have you. So.
And for those of you that haven't played around yet, there are a lot of tools over here on the side in Packback Instruct where you can go and actually manage what's happening in your discussion. So I don't know if you've gotten to play around with those all that much yet, Julia.
The kids love the leaderboard over there because they get to see who's on top, and it's always a competition. So that's kind of fun as well. But yeah.
And that leaderboard is going to be driven by engagement as well as quality. So maybe you're not the strongest writer yet, but you're really trying. That will also help you. So it's far more of this gamification experience versus a, competition, if you will. And then this tool is for you as the instructor, so you can actually go in and see within that period of time how many students have participated. Is there anybody that you maybe need to go message and give a little nudge to? So without having to scroll through the whole thing, you have all these tools at your fingertips that you can use to manage your time. And you can see these are the students that have not yet met the posting requirements. So Juliet, quickly send them both a message, give them a nice friendly reminder, versus again having to scroll through and look at the gradebook and figure out who did what. It synthesizes all of that information for you using AI.
Super helpful. Love it.
All right, from here, I'm going to take us into the deep dives portion. But if anybody has any questions, again, if you want us to go a little deeper on Packback questions, we can. It looks like we do have one question here. Do students use the same questions for the Packback discussion board and their TRF?
That's a good question. Yes, that is the idea, is that this is leading into that. So I'm not trying to make extra work. I'm trying to streamline it.
Thank you so much, Lori, for the question. Right. So from here, getting into these other two ways that you're leveraging the Packback platform. So we'll get into writing practice and deep dives, and then academic research practice. We'll start first with that writing practice. So Julia, can you just explain to us, and then I'll give the visual in the Packback environment, but how do you go about like setting up an assignment in deep dives if you're trying to focus just on their writing muscle?
Perfect. So when I set it up, I'm going to go in and create that assignment and put what's important to me. So for example, this particular student is, she's very smart, but she really has a language barrier. And so that first post that you see on the left is her scores. I made everybody do a writing assignment the first week of school, so I'd have like a data point of where are we starting. And then versus a writing essay that she did within just a month ago, so you can see her growth. But anyway, I can go through and choose what's important to me. Like I want word count to be this much, or grammar or flow. I can put formatting. I can also put in if I want to look at content, and then I can create my own rubric so that it makes it also easy for me to go through, and I can just click on the rubric what I want. But I brought this one up as an example because I just wanted you to see how the growth, like it's really strengthening this young lady. And that's what I'm seeing basically from students, is that wherever they started, they're so much stronger now in their writing ability. And that's been the whole goal all along. So, yeah, so when they look on this, so if they are scoring, they can see there's like a little thing that says CY. Then it breaks it out, and then they can see, and it'll show them in their paper, very specific things. These are things you need to fix. These are, sentences are not flowing well, and, and it'll give them some examples or kind of show them some things on how to fix it.
So I have an example here. This is not Juliet's community. This is just a example where we can show you this rubric and how you can set that up. So if you haven't gone in and played around too much, you have a lot in your control. So in here in the SMART rubric, we can go ahead.
Set the date and time that you want it to start and end. So you could, like have it set up where it will start in the future.
Yep, and then which I love that, because then they can preview what's coming up, especially for, your students who maybe want to get ahead. They can understand what's expected of them, and that can also help them with time management. And then go ahead, Juliet, walk us through how you.
Yeah, so for each of these, I'm just like, I can go through in such detail for each one, how much point value I want to set on it. I can set those word minimums and maximums, but also I've been known to like, oh, okay, I need to make that maximum a little higher because it's, so I can go in and change it even after the kids have started it. So that's really nice. Then as far as what kind of research they're putting in, you can have it be 0 or 1 or what have you, whatever you want. And it will even tell them give them comments about like the quality of the choice they picked. So that's nice as well. You can tell it if you want MLA, APA, Chicago style, formatting, which is really important because the kids, in my experience, my kids barely knew MLA. They didn't know APA at all. And every single college professor, save English, wanted APA. So I was like, we got to learn this quick and we got to get good at it. So I was able to really zone in on that and get some help. And then, of course, grammar mechanics. Ooh, it's rough out there with all the AI tools. Kind of it makes the kids weaker in their writing. So the more that they can get help on that, the better. And then the flow and structure. Again, I didn't want my class to turn into like an English classroom, but I wanted them to have that support and help. So, however, my English teacher on my team and my history teacher on my team were like, please, what are you using? I want this too. And so they've started adopting that. And even the science teacher has started asking questions about that because of all of the help that it provides the kids, but also the teachers. It also catches if they're trying to use AI or if they're plagiarizing, which is very helpful. And for the weekly entries that we do, it will just delete their entry. Like it'll warn them, like you need to fix this. And if they don't, then it's deleted. And so when they're like, what, I did it. And I was like, well, maybe it didn't meet the standards, so like they start to pick up on, oh, wow, this is AI that's working for the teacher as opposed to like doing the work for them.
Yeah, again, trying to augment and make your experience, your time is best spent teaching and coaching and being that person who can be present for your students. If you're spending all your time in these nitty-gritty administrative tasks, you're not able to be present for them. So that's our hope, that the tools are helping you do just that. As you all can see the check marks here, if you uncheck something, all that is saying is that we won't give you a recommended score when we get to the grading portion. If the check mark is there, we'll give you a recommended score. You don't have to take the score that the system is recommending for these areas. You can totally look at it and say, actually, no, I don't agree. I'm going to override it. And the students will not see a grade in these categories until you have reviewed it. So you are in complete control. This is all to set you up with a little supportive grading assistant, if you will.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And I use it all the time. I'll just glance at it and be like, oh, I don't know if I want to grade that hard on this, but typically it's great. It's fine. But if I choose to tweak something, it's so easy for me to just make a quick change.
And we'll go into one of your assignments here, Juliet. Would share your story or sociology be?
So share your story was what I had them do in the first week of school. And then the sociology paper is something that they had to write for that college course. So those, yeah. So they had a very specific rubric from their professor, which I just copy and pasted in there. And this is an example of, I said, I am not grading your content, but you're going to turn this in this paper for sociology for me so that I can grade it. And just for formatting, grammar, flow, all of that. So we use the discussion board application constantly. The deep dives we do only occasionally, as you can see. So.
And if you are an instructor in here and you teach classes outside of AVID classes, you can actually utilize Packback for those classes as well. If you are an AVID elective or Excel teacher, just a reminder to everybody. As Julia was explaining, the interest outside. So here you can see how she's set up. This is the assignment itself for the students. It's all in one easy place for them, which I like too. I've been in some environments where I've been in online classes and you're like trying to find where everything is. So for students, it's like, this is everything you need to know for this assignment. It's all here. Your resources are here. My rubric for you is here. So it's very clear, especially for parents trying to help follow along at home to help their students. It's not living in 1,000 different places that they have to check.
Yes.
And then we'll give you all a sneak peek of what it looks like.
Right.
Grade as well.
Yes. So, for example, if you click on edit, then we can look back at what it would look like. So as I'm grading it, so I get this paper and then I have this information over here on the right, and then I can go in and click on the CY on any of them. And then I can, the little glasses there, if I click on that, it's going to show me in the paper, yes, what it's talking about, why it said that. So perhaps I disagree, or perhaps I'm like, they, what they have is fine. I can choose to change that score if I want to. But anyway, I love, and it does this for the kids too. Like if it says like repetitiveness, for example, here, it's going to show them, okay, this is where you did this, but it goes into so many tiny little details like that to give the kids feedback and help.
And we'll go into, you had mentioned the originality report as well.
Mm-hmm.
A little bit for our audience here.
Yeah, so that's nice. Just I know that that's covered, and I don't have to stress about that because, oh my gosh, we definitely live in an AI world. So I'm trying to embrace it in a way that is helping the students, as best we can. So
And our
supporting them.
philosophy here at Packback is the more that students are exposed to these tools and we can help them with learning how to ethically utilize them, the less they're going to be likely to cheat. Will there still be students who want to abuse situations? Absolutely. There always has been, there always will be. But I think the majority of students actually care about doing well. And the only time that they make errors and plagiarism is typically from a level of misunderstanding. So if we're giving them access to those tools and helping them understand that there's visibility into what they're submitting, that tends to also help empower you as the instructor to go have a conversation with them and dig into maybe they were insecure about an assignment or something like that. And that can give you really good feedback on how to approach and support that student versus the gotcha policing that can
Exactly. And like I was saying, like with those discussion boards or even with this, if they turn something in that is suspicious, they get an email from Packback saying, hey, this, looks like something you need to fix. They have an opportunity to fix it. So they're getting called out in private and get a chance to fix that before they turn it in, or they don't. And then, their grade is their grade. So
absolutely. I like to privately coach and publicly praise.
exactly. Yeah. And that's another thing that I really love within the discussion board is I can go in, there's a thing called spark. So I can spark something like, ooh, or I can star it and put it as like one of the leading entries. But I can also give some feedback and it differentiates, am I like coaching them? Am I mentoring? Like what is my goal here? And usually if I'm sending them a message, it's like, hey, you need to fix this. This isn't how we phrase a question, or, make sure you're using, these tools that are expected.
Absolutely. And I think to round us out here, can you explain when you're focusing in on research writing as the final kind of goal of leveraging these tools, when you're doing that, what's some of the difference that you take in a research paper versus when you're just focusing on their submissions for flow, grammar, those pieces?
Right. So with research, I don't know if I'm kind of getting the weeds on this, but in my experience with the students is they don't conceptualize the difference between MLA, APA, and what is that in-text citation supposed to look like. And I can tell them and I can show them on the board how specific and nitpicky it is, but to have that AI tool be like, hey, whoop, you did it wrong, and really supporting that is so helpful. Just supporting that learning. Is that
Absolutely. And I'll show y'all here. So this is the student's view. So as they're working through, they have 3 areas, their research notes. So as they're building their research notes, they can get feedback from the system on, oh, it looks like you have something that you might want to add to your works cited. And then it can help them think through how to add that into their works cited following if it's APA, MLA, or Chicago. And then in the works cited area, it will also call out alerts. So again, instead of doing for them, it's coaching them and calling things out so that they're becoming more aware, because the hope is, once they go to that summative assessment on, say, an SAT exam, they're not going to have all of these supports. So the more that they can learn in this regular practice of what to look for, then they're going to be able to transfer that knowledge to that paper assessment or assessment where they don't have these supports available. So it's not just about helping them for this one assignment, but really teaching them the skills that lead to great writing along the way.
Absolutely. And yeah, like it definitely has made a huge difference in the scores and their writing ability. And I've seen it, like I mentioned, with the English language learner student, but also just all of them, their writing ability really stepped up. And at first the kids were like, why do we have to do this all the time? because, teenagers love to complain. But I think we're at the phase where they're starting to click like, oh, wow. I've had students this year come and thank me and be like, oh my goodness, I know my grade on that paper was good because of the help that you gave me. And really it was Packback helping them. So it's been great.
Because you were able to use this so well. So
Yeah.
no, technology is a silver bullet on its own. It takes great teachers. So on that, Juliet, you were kind of sharing with us, we want to be real with everybody. What do students think while they're going through this experience? What are some of the bumps and things that you might run into?
So, I mean, there's always a learning curve with new technology, right? So we got used to that in the first kind of few weeks, as far as getting used to the system, how it works, how do we correct things? How do I get the score that I want? Those kind of things. And then just like teenagers they like to complain. They don't want to do any work, really. There's no school work they're really excited about. But again, like I was saying, at this point in the year, they're starting to really appreciate the how they've improved. However, my students who have come back from last year, who are now full-time college students, wow, like the first thing I asked them as they came back to visit was, what was something I made you do that really helped you? I couldn't even finish the question. They're like, Packback helped me so much. And I was like, what? So I was like, tell me. And this young lady, they quoted me here. She said, Packback saved me my classes. I have to write all the time. I'm on top of it. I feel so confident, all these kind of comments back. So that really made me feel like, okay, we're doing it. We're doing it right. So as much as kids like to complain, I think at the end of the day, when they see how much they've grown and how, that their confidence growing and what they're able to do truly on their own, not using AI, it's phenomenal. So definitely made their life easier. They felt a lot more confident in their writing, and so it's been great.
And I love that. We have like students love the platform, but with the asterisk of not maybe initially, and that is okay. We used to joke for a long time here, Packback's kind of like broccoli. It's, deep thinking is not fun. It's much easier and nicer for someone to give you the quick answer. And we do live in a society where we've learned to not be patient and we expect things right away.
Right.
Versus like having to work for that muscle and to get good yourself. So we completely appreciate that students at first might groan and, not love it, but as long as you're setting a really good example for them so they can see that growth and really understand how it's impacting them. I think that's how you help overcome some of the grumblings and groaning.
For sure. And we do a lot of goal setting, on my weekly check-in, we'll do like, what's your SMART goal for this week? Or we'll make one, also like a bigger one each 6 weeks or each semester. And most all of them, like they want to make good grades. They want to get better at writing. They want all these things. And so for me to be able to go, okay, I have a tool that's going to help you. And all along the way, go, okay, remember, we're going to strengthen our vocabulary by doing our SAT words, or we're going to strengthen our writing by doing that. Or I'll ask them, why do we do Packback? And I make them tell me. So it's not just me saying it to them. And they know, and they say it back to me, like, it's helping me be a better writer, and look at my scores have gotten better, all of those things. So they get it.
Absolutely. Well, I have a few resources here, but before we round out, we did want to reserve, as we said, some time for questions. I have one question that's been sitting in the queue, but if you've been holding on to any burning questions, please throw them into the question and answer area of Zoom, or just into the direct chat as well, is fine at this point as well. So one of the questions was around Packback in math. This is definitely a question that we get from time to time. I'll give my perspective, and then Julia, I'd love to hear yours. If your math classroom is one that is structured around critical thinking and writing-based practice, then yes, Packback can be utilized in math. It's not going to be as strong of a it's not a mathematically based tool. So there are some functions in there that allow you to put formulas and things like that. But if you're really doing it for like regular math practice and to get feedback on math, that's not what Packback is set up to do. But if it is a tool that's around critical thinking and problem-based solving, and you want students to explain their thinking, then, or do real world application, then you could explore it. It's just not going to be as seamless of an integration as some of our other areas like science and ELA and history and things
Devyn,
like
I was just going to jump in on that. You know, we do these like post your question of where you're struggling and let the kids intervene. So very often students will talk about math as well, but it's more like understanding, how do I break down this problem? How do I do this? And then the kids are able to explain like, okay, so this is how I do that, or this is how you find that. There is a lot of math in their chemistry class that are kind of talking about how to break down those equations. And so while it's not really set up to do math problems, it's still that discussion of understanding. And that is something that they can do and are doing. So
1,000% agree. If it's more of that qualitative conversational mathematics, go for it. If you're looking for a quantitative tool, there's other tools out there that's probably a better fit for you. All right. Any other questions coming from the audience? We're happy to go back and dig in deeper on anything. And while we let people add anything in for us, Juliet, if you could share just in general, like your journey since AI hit the scene,
right.
what are you kind of hearing from students and seeing just like broadly with
Yeah.
AI?
I mean, just to be quite frank, cheating has just become a norm in high school students. And it's just become so much part of the culture. I think they're starting to not really understand where the lines are of what is appropriate and what's not. So that is a thing that's going on. They're very aware of, you know, aware. They're using Chat GPT and all the things. So to have a source like this that just like, you know, you can't do that here, it doesn't work, then, you know, that kind of eliminates that issue. So it is a thing, like it's in our society. And I mean, I have teachers that are using it to help them make their lesson plans, you know, more power to you, right? Like it's the age we're in, we need to embrace it. So, but we still needed our kids to learn how to read and write effectively and be able to be critical thinkers and all of those things that we want them to be able to do. So using a tool like this kind of locks that in for like, okay, now we're going to actually use our brains and nothing else. So I love that.
Absolutely. I'm definitely using those tools to help me when I need to write things, but again, with the right boundaries of my own voice. But I think as a student right now, they need to be shown the way of what are the appropriate uses of these tools.
Exactly. And it's a hard line for a student to respect because they just want to get that grade. They just want to get that, you know, quick fix. But we know that like the goal is like for you to actually learn to do it on your own. Just like when we were kids, you know, you can't use a calculator. You gotta learn you gotta learn your math facts and all those things. And we didn't appreciate it at the time, but you know, of course you have to know those things. You don't want to grow up and not be able to write. You don't want to be able to not fill out a form or write an email or what have you, or write something down on a piece of paper and not be able to sound intelligent. So
Absolutely. Well, everyone, thank you for joining us. It does look like we might not have any more questions, which is hopefully because we answered them all along the way. Peter from our team will be sending out a follow-up with some of these resources. And again, if you have yet to go to our general training session to get set up, Madison Shea is the one who runs those sessions as our community manager. In order to take advantage of using Packback through your AVID membership, you do need two things. You need consent from your district, and that's to make sure that we are keeping your students' data and privacy safe. And then you need to be verified in my AVID. So we have a lot of support for you to work through getting those two things checked off so that you can start utilizing Packback if you haven't already. If you have been using Packback and you have yet to get that data privacy agreement set up with your district, we will need it before next fall. So you'll be seeing a lot of messaging from us about that because we want to make sure that before fall, we have consent from everybody's districts, again, to keep students safe. So again, if you have any questions, you are welcome to reach out to Madison. And we do encourage you to join those trainings if you haven't yet already. As you're wrapping up, if you wanted to share with us any final questions, we'll hang out here for the next couple of minutes. Otherwise, we'll give you a little bit more time back in your day, which I'm sure everyone could use coming off of spring break. we'll just give people 1 or 2 more minutes and then we'll give you some time back too, Juliet. Thank you so much.
Of course, I'm happy to help.